Sheldon Thomas has spent nearly 2 decades in prison after being wrongfully convicted of a 14-year-old boy. A review of his case has found out that he has been denied due process the entire time. This just shows you how corrupt the court system is and how sometimes prosecutors and judges don't care if they have actual evidence or not.
Welcome back to CBS Mornings, where we have got a story for you. Earlier this month, 35-year-old Sheldon Thomas walked out of a Brooklyn, New York courtroom free after almost 2 decades behind bars. Thomas was arrested back in 2004 for murder after an eyewitness pointed to a picture of a guy named Sheldon Thomas in a police lineup of photos. But the man in the image was actually a different person entirely, happened to have the same name. And as we step through the circles of absurdity here, that guy also had no link to the case. Nevertheless, prosecutors continued to focus on the Sheldon Thomas they had in custody, which eventually led to his wrongful conviction.
Wow. So, another case of bad eyewitness testimony pointing to people who had no connection to the case or crime whatsoever, but still the prosecutors was still able to get some kind of conviction, and it's just crazy. With no evidence or no connection to the crime, people are being convicted.
Thomas talked to our Lilia Luciano just days after his release in his very first TV interview.
I waited for this my whole life.
Sheldon Thomas was 16 when police took down the door of his home and locked him up. Now, 19 years later, he's been effectively exonerated.
Wow. Imagine being 16 and being sent to prison for a crime you didn't do. And what about the person who did the crime? Since this guy was convicted, I doubt the cops was looking for the person, and who knows how many other crimes he committed.
Hard about just being out and about. It's been so little time.
Just like what you said, being out and about, adjusting, being around people.
Thomas was convicted for second-degree murder in the December 2004 death of a 14-year-old boy in Brooklyn. Attorneys William Caston and Leslie Ressinger have worked with Thomas for more than a decade. They say the case should have never even made it to trial.
How much of his case was based on lies?
100%. From the police interaction to him, every party failed him in the system.
In a pretrial hearing, a detective lied, then admitted to lying on the stand, and the case still moved forward.
Wow. So the cop was like, yeah, I lied about the interaction and what happened, and the judge and jury was like, okay, your testimony is still admissible. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You would think that if somebody admits to lying, that they wouldn't admit that as evidence or anything, but no, they still used his previous testimony as evidence.
He is arrested based on a photo that is not his.
The people involved in decision-making refused to accept the fact that a mistake was made. How can a jury reach a fair verdict? It was rigged from the start.
The unit that reviewed his case after years of failed appeals concluded that Thomas was denied due process at every stage and found one of the detectives involved had been harassing Thomas after a prior arrest and lied about knowing him.
And just more evidence that cops are just extremely corrupt people who don't really care about serving justice or protecting people. All they care about is being able to get arrests, make their quotas, and abusing people.
Did you ever feel like they were targeting you specifically?
Most definitely.
It should have been the other way around. You're innocent until proven guilty.
From my lenses, where I see life, it's always like that for people like me. For people that look like me, it's always like that.
Yeah, because in America, it's still a crime to exist and be black. Though to a lot of cops, everybody is guilty until proven innocent. But yeah, especially black people. They're still considered, super predators.
You're guilty until you actually prove that you're innocent.
Nearly 2 decades later, he finally stepped into what still feels like a mirage of freedom.
I haven't even cried yet since I've been home. Like, I haven't even got to the point where it actually hit me. I still have dreams about being in prison. I'm scared to go to sleep as the days go by. It dawns on me a little bit more, a little bit more.
Mr. Thomas' motion to vacate his judgment of conviction is granted.
At a hearing this month, Thomas shared how his hope was sustained for so long by releasing resentment.
When I was sentenced, Del Judas said that I deserved to spend the rest of my life in prison. He was wrong. I didn't deserve what happened, and I forgive him.
Shoot, if that was me, I don't think I could forgive a person like that who violated my rights as a human being. So hopefully he can sue the court, the police, the judge, and everybody else involved in this and get a fat stack of coin.
I know I've lost 20 years already, but ultimately I prevailed. I don't like losing, so I have to let go because I don't want that to be what defines me as a human, as a person. I want love to define me.
Sheldon says he can't sleep because he's afraid that he's going to wake up and it was all a dream. He can't sleep because of the other inmates he met up in Attica who he believes are there innocent. We reached out to the...
Yeah, this dude is going to be suffering from PTSD for quite a while. The city should be required to pay for his therapy.
The detective that we mentioned in this case who was involved in the original arrest, that he said he did not want to comment. You know, here's one thing that the attorney told me. When you commit a crime and you serve your sentence, when you walk out, there is resources, there is assistance. For him, they just open the door and you're on your own. So
he gets no assistance whatsoever.
Nothing right now. He's relying on his...
Actually, for most people, there are no resources you get when you leave prison. That's why the recidivism rate of the United States is extremely high, because there's no system for these people to be able to properly reintegrate into society, especially when they're continually punished afterwards with you know, the inability to get certain jobs, the inability to get benefit from the government, certain housing programs that you cannot apply for. And so the system is also made to still punish people after they get out of prison.
His elderly mother, who's working a second shift to support him, and on crowdfunding that his attorney set up. And eventually, perhaps he may sue, and maybe he'll win, but he's not ready for that. Right now, he's just focusing.
And what's it like for him to be around people?
Well, that's what he was saying. He said, we were walking around Central Park, and he said, when you're in prison, the only time you get outside, you're in the yard, and if somebody gets close to you...
It's normally not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. You're going to get attacked. So he feels like that self-preservation means isolation. And even with his family, he says, I feel so bad because they reach out to me, and I just need the solitude.
Yes. I hope Lily, he...
Yeah, he only feels safe when he's not around people. He's been turned into basically an agoraphobic person because he's afraid of you know society now, because as I said, when you're in prison, most of the time when people want to get close is to harm you.
Will allow himself a good cry. He certainly deserves and needs that. But I marvel that he can sit here today after the injustice that happened to him and say, I forgive them.
You know what?
I would still need help on that. I mean, and I want love to define.
Yeah, he's going to need a lot of therapy, and we talked so much. I wish I could share everything, but he did. I asked him, what got you through it? And he said Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning.
One of the greatest books ever.
He read it over and over, and he read about this man in a concentration camp, and he said, well, at least that's not this, and if he can get through it, and all those lessons got him.
That book's incredible. Powerful story.
He's an amazing human being.
Yeah.